Dawn Richard didn't walk into that courtroom to perform. She walked in to testify. A woman once groomed under Diddy's empire, signed, mentored, and molded into a star, was now standing face to face with the man she once called a boss, ready to tell the world what really went on behind closed doors. And what she revealed? It wasn't just shocking, it was explosive. Years of whispered rumors suddenly had a voice, and it came from someone who had been there, lived it, and watched it all unfold from the inside. This wasn't just another celebrity lawsuit. This was a turning point in one of hip-hop's darkest ongoing scandals. According to Dawn, the glitz and glamour of Bad Boy Records masked something far more sinister. Behind the fame, she said, was a brutal, fear-driven environment, especially for women. Dawn didn't just back Cassie's claims of abuse, she added new layers to them. Her testimony pointed to a pattern: emotional control, psychological isolation, and terrifying outbursts of violence. She told the court she witnessed Cassie being physically assaulted by Diddy in his own home. And it wasn't hearsay, it was firsthand. As the courtroom held its breath, it became clear. This wasn't a bitter ex-employee. This was a survivor, finally speaking out. And that's when everything changed. Dawn's words didn't just support the prosecution's case, they shifted the narrative. It was no longer just Cassie versus Diddy. Now, it was Diddy versus a growing list of women, insiders, and former allies, all with stories to tell. The courtroom became a battleground, not just for justice, but for truth. And what started as one woman's testimony is now threatening to tear down an empire. Stay tuned, because what happens next could alter the course of this trial, and the music industry, forever. What Dawn Richard described on the stand wasn't just a toxic work environment, it was a calculated system of control. According to her, working under Sean Diddy Combs felt like walking on a razor's edge. Every word, every move had consequences. Behind the platinum records and flashy performances, Dawn said there was an invisible rulebook, and the number one rule was fear. Speak up, and you could lose everything. Stay silent, and you might survive. For the women especially, the cost of stepping out of line could be more than just a ruined career. It could be life-altering. She painted the inner workings of Diddy's empire as a place where intimidation reigned. No one questioned his authority because doing so could lead to punishment, or worse, erasure. Dawn testified that Cassie wasn't just Diddy's girlfriend in the public eye, she was someone completely controlled behind closed doors. Isolated from others, stripped of autonomy, and emotionally manipulated, Cassie appeared to be more captive than companion. It wasn't just about abuse, it was about domination. And for those who witnessed it, the fear of speaking out became its own kind of prison. Dawn's words pierced through the courtroom like a blade, stripping away years of polished PR and public image. This wasn't just a celebrity fallout or bitter ex-employee lashing out. It was an inside view into how power can be weaponized, not just to build an empire, but to control the very people propping it up. Her account adds weight to Cassie's and suggests that what happened wasn't an isolated case, but part of a deeper institutional pattern. And as more voices come forward, the image of Diddy as an untouchable mogul is starting to crack, revealing something far more disturbing underneath. The courtroom went silent, not out of confusion, but out of collective shock. Dawn. Richard recounted a moment so violent, so raw, that it cut through the noise of celebrity and forced everyone to confront a darker truth. According to her testimony, it happened in 2009, inside Sean Diddy Combs' Los Angeles mansion. The trigger? Something as mundane as breakfast. But what happened next, Dawn said, was anything but ordinary. She claimed Diddy snapped, his anger boiling over in seconds. And then, with no warning, he grabbed a skillet and struck Cassie in the head. Not once, not twice, but repeatedly, until she was on the ground, defenseless. And Dawn wasn't the only one who saw it. Her bandmate, Keena Harper, was there too. Another eyewitness who allegedly stood frozen as the beating unfolded in real time. They didn't intervene. Not because they didn't care, but because the fear was paralyzing. According to Dawn, this wasn't just an abusive relationship. It was a power dynamic so terrifying that even bystanders felt helpless. Cassie, bloodied and beaten, was then allegedly kicked, punched, and dragged up the stairs by the same man who once introduced her as the love of his life. It was a scene ripped straight from a nightmare, and for 15 years no one dared speak of it. Until now. That incident, buried for over a decade, finally came to light in open court. It shattered the illusion that this was just a messy breakup or a bitter ex airing dirty laundry. Dawn's account provided brutal specificity, and it aligned with Cassie's broader claims of long-term abuse. It wasn't a rumor. It wasn't tabloid drama. It was testimony, on the record, under oath, and the ripple effect was immediate. This wasn't just a blow to Diddy's legal defense, it was a seismic shift in the case. Because once that skillet entered the story, the line between fame and fear became impossible to ignore. Dawn Richards' testimony hit hard, but Diddy's legal team hit right back. Within hours of her appearance in court, they launched a swift and strategic legal counterattack. Their move? A formal motion to dismiss her civil lawsuit, accusing her of everything from opportunism to timing her claims for maximum public damage. According to Diddy's lawyers, this wasn't about truth. It was about headlines. They framed Dawn's allegations, ranging from sexual misconduct and forced labor to sex trafficking and withheld royalties, as overblown, unsubstantiated, and rooted in professional bitterness rather than fact. In their words, this was just a disgruntled former artist trying to rewrite history because she didn't like the deal she signed. But Diddy's team didn't stop at words. They brought receipts, legal documents, contracts, clauses. They argued that the environment Dawn described wasn't unique. It was the music industry, fast-paced, ruthless, and unrelenting. Yes, it was intense. But illegal? They said absolutely not. And Dawn? According to their response, she wasn't an abused artist. She was a willing participant in the chaos, one who continued working with Diddy long after the alleged incidents took place. In the courtroom, emotional testimony only goes so far. What really matters is documentation, timelines, legal clarity, and that's exactly where Diddy's attorneys pivoted next. Because beneath the emotional weight of Dawn's testimony lies the cold foundation of every legal battle: paper. Diddy's legal team revealed past contracts Dawn signed, contracts they say could void her entire case. From non-disclosure agreements to royalty releases, they're using her own signature to argue that she waived her right to sue. The message was clear. This isn't just about what happened behind closed doors, it's about what was signed in black and white. And now, the fight over Dawn's credibility has shifted from the courtroom floor to the filing cabinet. Because if Diddy's lawyers can prove her claims were already settled in writing, they won't just protect his image, they might dismantle her entire case. Just when Dawn Richards' testimony began gaining traction, Diddy's legal team pulled out their most powerful defense yet. Not a denial, but a document. According to them, this entire lawsuit shouldn't even exist. Why? Because Dawn allegedly signed her rights away, twice. First in 2007, under a contract with Bad Boy Records that waived any claims prior to June of that year. Then again in 2021, when she regained ownership of her music, but also agreed to a sweeping release that covered nearly everything from the beginning of time through July 1st of that year. That phrase wasn't metaphorical, it was legal. And it's the kind of language that doesn't just close a door, it slams it shut. What's even more critical is the timing. Many of Dawn's most disturbing allegations about the hostile work conditions, alleged abuse, and withheld compensation stem from her early years with Diddy, particularly during the Making the Band era. But under the terms of that 2007 agreement, Diddy's lawyers argue that those claims were legally resolved. And anything that slipped through the cracks? They say the 2021 publishing deal wiped those clean too. That means no matter how compelling her testimony is, no matter how horrific her stories sound in court, if the paperwork holds up, she may be legally barred from seeking justice for any of it. It's a brutal reminder of how ironclad contracts can silence even the loudest cries for accountability. Diddy's team isn't just defending him in court, they're building a wall of signed agreements, timestamps, and technicalities. They claim Dawn voluntarily entered these agreements and benefited from them, even accepting royalty transfers in 2021 while giving up future legal leverage. And now, as her civil case hangs in the balance, the defense is pushing hard to make sure the court sees not a victim, but a contract breaker. In the eyes of the law, emotional trauma might be real, but if it's already been waived in writing, Diddy's team is betting it won't matter. Just when the courtroom drama seemed to hit its peak, a new bombshell emerged, one that could dismantle the prosecution's entire narrative. It wasn't a surprise witness. It wasn't leaked footage. It was a journal. A handwritten diary allegedly kept by Clayton Howard, a man with deep personal ties to both Diddy and Cassie. Clayton wasn't just a casual acquaintance. He's been described as a long-term sex worker allegedly involved with both parties during the years the infamous freak-offs took place. His writings, if authentic, could offer an unfiltered glimpse into the most secretive and scandalous parts of Diddy and Cassie's relationship, potentially reshaping the case in ways no one expected. The problem? Clayton doesn't want to hand it over. When the court subpoenaed all of his written materials, journals, notes, recollections, his lawyer, Tyrone Blackburn, responded with a motion to quash. They claimed the documents were protected by legal privilege, possibly connected to an ongoing or future lawsuit. But Diddy's defense wasn't buying it. They argued that Clayton had already shared parts of the journal with the prosecution and was reportedly considering publishing them. If that's true, they say any confidentiality is already void. And what's inside this diary? According to Diddy's team, it may completely contradict Cassie's sworn testimony, potentially portraying her not as a controlled victim, but as a willing participant. And that's exactly why this diary is so dangerous, for both sides. For the prosecution, it threatens to undercut Cassie's credibility. For the defense, it's a risky gamble that could backfire if the contents confirm abuse or manipulation. But make no mistake, this isn't just another piece of evidence, it's a potential turning point. The entire courtroom now waits to see if the judge will force Clayton to comply. Because whatever is written in those pages, one thing is clear. It could either destroy Diddy's defense or dismantle Cassie's claims. And in a trial already defined by shocking turns, the fight over this journal might just be the biggest twist yet. In a trial already filled with shocking testimony and explosive revelations, it's the contents of one private journal that could prove most devastating. Diddy's legal team is now laser-focused on forcing Clayton Howard to turn over his alleged diary, a journal they claim could be the key to dismantling Cassie's entire testimony. Their argument? That Clayton willingly shared the contents with prosecutors and possibly others, effectively waiving any claim to legal privilege. And because of that, they say the court has every right to demand it. The urgency is real. Diddy's team wants that journal in the judge's hands, immediately, because what's inside might not just contradict Cassie's story. It might erase it altogether. According to Diddy's lawyers, the journal paints a radically different picture of the so-called freak-off events. Instead of depicting Cassie and Clayton as exploited or manipulated, the entries allegedly describe them as willing participants, consenting adults in a lifestyle they chose. If this version of events gains traction, it could completely reframe the trial's emotional core. No longer a story of coercion and abuse, it would shift into murky territory, where lines blur between consent and control, freedom and fear. And for Cassie, who has already endured hours of emotional cross-examination, this could shatter the credibility she's fought so hard to establish. But the legal implications go even deeper. If the judge rules in favor of Diddy's motion, the journal becomes admissible evidence, and that could unravel the prosecution's carefully built case. It's a gamble that could reshape the entire outcome of this trial. Will Cassie still be seen as a survivor bravely exposing years of manipulation? Or will the defense succeed in casting doubt on her entire narrative using the words of someone who once stood by her side? In this high-stakes legal chess match, that journal is no longer just a diary. It's a weapon. And whoever gains control of it could determine whether Diddy walks free or falls. Diddy's legal team isn't denying that chaos existed behind the scenes, but they're reframing it. Their entire defense hinges on a single argument. These women weren't victims, they were willing collaborators. According to the defense, Cassie and Dawn weren't powerless. They had lawyers, contracts, opportunities to walk away. They weren't trapped, they stayed. They argue Cassie continued her relationship with Diddy for years, even appearing publicly by his side long after the alleged abuse began. Dawn, they say, continued to tour, record music, and sign agreements under his label. In their eyes, this case isn't about survival, it's about regret, resentment, and rewriting the past for a payout. But the prosecution has an entirely different story to tell, one that goes beyond contracts and looks deeper into control. They argue that what happened wasn't just manipulation, it was systemic psychological abuse. That these women didn't stay out of choice, but out of fear, intimidation, and dependence. Behind the glamour, they say, was a power structure where speaking out meant losing everything. And it's not just Cassie and Dawn. More witnesses are waiting in the wings, ready to take the stand. Among them is Carrie Morgan, a longtime friend of Cassie who claims Diddy assaulted her with a wooden hanger, and David James, a former assistant who allegedly witnessed the dark side of the empire up close. Each new voice threatens to unravel Diddy's carefully polished legacy. This is no longer just a he said, she said case. It's turning into a reckoning. The more testimony that surfaces, the harder it becomes for the defense to sell the narrative that everyone around Diddy simply misunderstood the price of fame. The prosecution is peeling back the layers, exposing not just individual acts of abuse, but a system of silence and control that allegedly protected Diddy for decades. And with each witness that steps forward, the courtroom becomes less about protecting a brand and more about exposing a pattern. This trial isn't just putting Diddy under a microscope, it's forcing the entire entertainment industry to confront its deepest, darkest truths. For years, fame has been a shield. Contracts, NDAs, and multi-million-dollar settlements kept the spotlight on red carpets and award shows, while the pain and power struggles stayed buried. But now, that veil is lifting. Testimonies from Cassie, Dawn Richard, and Clayton Howard are painting a disturbing picture, not just of one man's alleged abuses, but of a system built to silence victims and protect power. And the most chilling part? This might only be the beginning, because this case isn't about one incident or one relationship gone wrong. It's about the machinery behind celebrity, the handlers, the lawyers, the executives who saw the warning signs and looked the other way. It's about women who were allegedly manipulated, isolated, and controlled under the guise of stardom. And now those stories are echoing beyond the courtroom, shaking an industry that's long relied on silence. If the defense wins, it sends a message that contracts can still overwrite trauma. But if the prosecution succeeds, it sets a precedent that fame, no matter how big, is no longer untouchable. So now the question isn't just, is Diddy guilty? It's bigger than that. It's about what we as a society are willing to tolerate behind the velvet rope. It's about how long we'll accept silence as part of the price of fame. And it's about what happens when the illusion shatters, and all that's left is the truth. Let us know where you stand in the comments below. Are these voices finally being heard, or is the industry still covering its ears? Don't forget to hit like, tap subscribe, and turn on notifications, because the next wave of testimony could change everything.